link there, but go to Tuesday School and you can find the link there. All right. Good to see you guys. This is where Jace messes up Christmas. So let's go. Let's mess it all up. Let's pray to start off so we won't mess it all up. Thanks, Father, for this group that's here. And we're really grateful that you give us time to talk about this this cool library of texts that you've given us, that you've let your people give to us. We'd love to learn some things about it and think a little more deeply. And maybe for some of us who are believers, that maybe it'll pull us closer to you. It's always our goal. And if not, maybe you will learn something from it all. But as always, as I ask, please keep us always thinking and humble and kind to one another, no matter where we're at on this theological spectrum, or not having one at all. And we'll give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay.
Amen.
Oh, thanks, Josh. That was good add on there at the end. All right, so here we go. Oh, hi, Sharon and Lori and Kathy. Nice to see the rest of you. I should say hi. You'd rather see them than
yeah, because I think there's discussion. So.
Oh yeah, they talk a lot here.
Hey, do I need a Bible for this Bible study, dude?
Yes, you do, Josh. What a great question. You will definitely need a Bible for this Bible study because we are walking through all of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 1 through 66, all tonight. We'll just do chapter 7, but that's still a lot, and a little bit of 8. All right, so here's some statistics to start you off. You guys ready for these statistics? 1 out of every 73 people have skydived. You don't have to take notes at this point. 1 out of every 73 people have skydived. Facebook has 1.3% more registered users than there are trees left on the planet. 62.3% of high school students cannot locate Saturn on a planet map. 58% of television viewers believed Game of Thrones was based on historical events. Every day of the week, 1 in 20 people eat at McDonald's. Yeah. Now, which one of those is closest to being true? Because none of them are true. I made them all up. So which one is closest to being true? What do you think?
McDonald's.
McDonald's, that's right. That's the closest one to being true. All the other ones are completely fictional statistics, which is isn't there like some kind of quote about like 63.7% of all statistics are completely made up on the spot or something like that, right? And that's also one of those particular statistics. So here's what we see in apologetic circles. Apologetics, just for those of you who don't know, apologetics is just like defending the faith. Okay, you're not making an apology. You're not saying I'm sorry or anything. It's just a defense. Apogia just means to defend. So in apologetics, especially in like most of you guys have come from some sort of evangelical setting probably, or a more relatively conservative setting. Apologetics is a big thing, right? We have got to defend God, and we got to defend the Bible, and we have an answer for everything, because obviously the Bible tells us have an answer for everything. So we have to have an answer for everything. And so we always have it. And statistics are one of the places we go in order to prove our points. And so we go into the Old Testament, we find all of these cool things we call prophecies. We grab hold of these prophecies, and then we take them into the New Testament, and we show this one and this one and this one. 59 prophecies about Jesus, all coming true in very specific ways in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. 59 or 60 different prophecies, clear prophecies that show that obviously the Old Testament was pointing to Jesus. And of course, the probabilities of this happening are insane. So the probability that Jesus of Nazareth would fulfill just 8 of the 60 or so prophecies about his coming is 10 to the 17th power. 1 in 10 to the 17th power. So write a 1 and then write 17 zeros after that. I have no idea what number that is. Some of you might be way smarter than me, but it's 100 bagazillion. I don't know what it is. That's just 8 of them coming true. Okay, so, this is all what we need as good Christians, right? All we need is somebody on TikTok to give us these kinds of statistics. That's only 8 of the prophecies, but all 60 of them came true. So if all 60 of them come true, right, that's a pretty powerful statistic. It's just for the 8, it's nearly twice as difficult to win Publishers Clearinghouse. I can't even figure out how many, like, and to be struck by lightning, like the statistic. This is so impossible for it to have possibly come true. Scientific, what's it called? Science Speaks, the magazine, said this would be like covering the entire state of Texas. So there you go, Mason. The entire state of Texas with silver dollars 2 feet deep and dropping a blind man into the middle of it and him choosing the one silver dollar specifically marked. That's what the statistic would be like for this to happen. Now, as a preacher, this preaches, baby. Like, I will pull in the people with this kind of statistic. We will leave happy, confirmation, like, yes, obviously we were right all along. We didn't know these statistics, but we were right. We've got it. And then we start wondering, how could anyone with those statistics, how could anyone possibly believe otherwise? Right? It's so obvious that the Old Testament is pointing to Jesus, right? I mean, how can Jews not have figured this out? Right? Is everyone else except for us just stupid? What's going on here? This is the way we think about it. So, Isaiah 7:14. This is one of those 60 or so prophecies. Okay, so we're going to look at Isaiah 7:14 because it's Christmas time and I just like messing people up. But I want to give you some of the actual work. So we're going to walk through this text together and think through Isaiah 7:14 because this is a Christmas text. You guys know this one, right? Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a child, right? And they shall call his name Emmanuel, right? And everybody's singing it, right? Okay, so Emmanuel, that's this passage. There shall be a sign that will be given to you. The virgin shall conceive and shall bear a child, and they'll call his name Emmanuel. So this is, of course, if you just say 7:14, what you're doing is, and we've learned this over time, I hope, we've dropped you like into the state of Texas with those coins. We've dropped you into the middle of a political catastrophe that's going on for the authors of this and said, here's one little phrase, and what it's talking about is Jesus. We all know about Jesus being born of a virgin. Matthew talks about it. Matthew says this is a fulfillment of Isaiah. So when we read Isaiah, it's obvious that it's talking about Jesus. We're done. And I have no idea what's going on in the history and the politics, in the literature of that time period. We have no idea anything about what's happening. This is like dropping you into an episode of what's one of those really good TV shows that's all talk and great writing, like Newsroom or West Wing or something like that, right? Just drop you into one of those shows, bing, and then you just hear a little phrase and you take it out, and that's what you got. All right, so what we want to do, if you don't mind, well, you're here, so I should assume you don't mind. We're going to go through this and we're going to walk through this chapter and just try to see what it's doing. Because I think most of us here are here because we actually do have faith in this Jesus. And we do think that he's fulfilled something. And maybe before you just listened to my little sarcastic intro, you were like, yeah, this is clearly a prophetic thing that's going on. And maybe you're still like 100%. But I know Jason's going to do something, so I'm ready for it. I'm not going to admit anything right now. Let's actually look at it and see what it's doing. All right, so Isaiah chapter 7, verse 1. You stop me at any time because I'm going to walk through the text. I would have you read it, but it's just one verse at a time. Well, good. Somebody read it, verse 1. That might get boring real quick if you read it and then I comment, and then you read it and I comment. But go ahead. Who wants to do it? Who's got a Bible out? Just a single verse.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Just that one?
Nope. Actually, start over at verse 1. That's
Verse
our theme verse. Good job. Now let's start at the beginning of the chapter, verse 1.
How far?
Just one. One
One.
verse. Yep.
Now it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, that Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up to Jerusalem to make war against it, but could not prevail.
Good
Now
job.
now you know why nobody wanted to read it.
That's right. It's like Ramalaya, Pekka, okay, yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is like, what in the world? A list of names. This is like reading First Chronicles for 9 chapters, right? Like all of these ridiculous names that nobody has any clue who these people are. But there's no way you can understand verse 14 without understanding verse 1. Because it comes in a context, and we can't be doing that kind of stuff. So Ahaz, wait, let's bring us in. Maybe. Okay. Ahaz is the king. Gotta just write some things out here. Ahaz equals king of what?
Northern Kingdom.
Or
Judah.
Southern Kingdom. Right. One of those kingdoms, right? Okay, so this is Ahaz. All right. This is who the prophet Isaiah is going to talk to. Okay, so he's a prophet. And prophets, what their whole job is to stand between king and people. Okay, so here's the prophet in the middle. Or between God and king. Okay, so they have interaction both directions. That's the job of the prophet. There are an ambassador or somebody that's going to intermediate, the intermediary. Okay, they're going to talk in between these two. So his job is on behalf of God to go to the king. The prophet is to go to the king and give him God's message. Okay, and then the king is supposed to say, okay, tell God this, and he's supposed to take it back. That's what will happen. That's just the norm. Or sometimes it's to go from the king to the people. Okay, or the king being the big king, the suzerain king. Okay, the suzerain is the conquering king versus the little king, the vassal king. Okay, so that's their relationship. The prophet sits in between them. Okay, so I assumed maybe some of you knew those, but still, we're going to make sure that everybody's in the same place. Now we've got these other two people. One of them's name is Pekah, right? And one of them name is Rezin. Okay, who's who? What does it say? Just look at the verse. I mean, this is something you skip over real quick when you're reading it for devotion time, but you don't get to skip over right now. Who are these people?
King of Syria. And
Syria or Aram, yeah.
Pekah is the son of Remaliah, excuse me.
Yeah. King of Israel.
King of Israel. Okay, so son of Remaliah. You're going to see it. Sometimes he's just going to be called son of Remaliah instead of Pekah. Rezin, Syria, and sometimes Syria
Called Aram.
will be called Aram.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these are the same places. They're just like in any place. They're called different things depending on where you live. So you might call something Aram. Somebody else might call it Syria. But it's basically where Syria is today. And Israel is basically where Israel is today. So if we're drawing a big, huge map here, and I'm sorry for people who don't like politics and history and stuff, but you cannot understand this verse without it. Okay, we've got this whole place over here that might be called Mediterranean Sea or the Great Sea, right? And down here we have Israel. And then it got split. So there's Israel and there's Judah. So this is the southern kingdom. This is the northern kingdom. Two totally separate kingdoms that used to be belonged together under King David and Solomon. Kind of, at least literally, they belong together. That is, at least that's the way the story went. So Israel, and then you've got Syria, Syria is kind of here. Okay. And then you've got this other big country, which barely call it a country, that is Assyria. So this is like an empire. Okay. And they are expanding because that's the definition of an empire, right? They're expanding, right? You guys saw The Empire Strikes Back, right? There's 4 gazillion stormtroopers on every planet for 4 million planets. I don't know how many clones that would take. Someone do the math. Can you do that? There's like it's impossible, right? It's not real. Okay, but this is not Star Wars. This is this stuff. So the Syrian Empire is getting bigger and bigger, and of course, threatening to take over Syria and then to take over Israel. But you can see how far away Judah is from it. Further away. Not as big of a concern for Judah. It'll be a long time before they get there in their expanse. So, of course, what they'd really like is to take out Egypt. They can make it all the way down here, take out all of Europe, everything going on up here, Greece, right? Rome, these places up here. Maybe even all the way down here to the Euphrates River. So this is the great river Euphrates, Persian Gulf, right? Okay, so just big picture kinds of things there. That's what's happening. So Assyria is coming after Syria and Israel, and these are our kings. So this is King Rezin, right? And this is King Pekah. Did I do that right? Yes? Somebody nod their head. Okay, I got to look at it so I remember. All right, Rezin is king of Aram. Yep, okay. So this is Aram. All right, that makes sense? Okay, I know you're like, there's too much history and maps and geography and all that other stuff. Okay. So let me give you a little bit more stuff here, because you got to understand Isaiah in order to get there. Okay, the book of Isaiah. Okay, this is free, probably not super helpful. But the book of Isaiah comes after what book in your Bible? Go ahead and turn the page, one page this way.
Song of Songs.
Song of Songs, okay. So Isaiah, right before it is Song of Songs, right before it Ecclesiastes, right? Okay. In your Bible, not in their Bible, though.
Not in their Bible.
Okay,
Second
that's very
Kings.
important, right, David? That's right. Okay. So what's happening in our Bible is the prophetic tradition took on such an appeal, became so considerable that they wanted to put the prophets at the end because the prophets led into the New Testament in such a beautiful way. Okay, the prophets were saying, where is he? Where is he? And then the New Testament says, here he is, right? So it's like, so they put it at the end. Okay, their Bible has Chronicles at the end. So their Bible would have something like they would have the former prophets.
Can you define their Bible for us?
Yes, Hebrew Bible.
Thank you.
Okay, so they have 22 books or so based on the letters. It all depends on how you define the different books. We've got 39 books, but they don't have 1st and 2nd Chronicles, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Samuel. They just have Samuel, Kings, Chronicles. They have Ezra and Nehemiah. So they have less books because they're combined depending on the size of the scroll. Okay, so Hebrew Bible has the former prophets and then the latter prophets. The former prophets are Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings, and then move straight into Isaiah, Jeremiah, right? Ezekiel, and then the minor prophets. Remember, Daniel's not a prophet. Okay, get rid of that. There's no Daniel prophet. That's not a thing except for in your weird Bibles. Okay, that's not the way Hebrews think about that. Daniel's part of the writings, the completely different section of the Tanakh. All this is just free extra information for those of you who are super nerds like me and like these extra information.
I'll pay you later, dude.
Okay, thanks, man. All right, so that was all for Josh and someone else probably. All right, so we have our history. we have our geography, we have our setting. Isaiah himself, okay, or Isaiah itself is split into three parts. Now, there is no consensus on how this works, but has been an academic consensus for a long time, and it shifts. It always is shifting, but in general, chapters 1 through 40 is one section, 41 through 56 is one section, through 55 is one section, and 56 through 66 is another section. We call this Isaiah. We call this Deutero-Isaiah. We call this Trito-Isaiah. First, second, and third Isaiah. Okay? They're called these things because the scholars look at these things and they say one person did not write all of this based on dates that are going on in there. Isaiah's not going to live that long based on the way that the language is used. But then they also say, yeah, but there is quite a lot of unity in the book. The book is very unified. So it looks like somebody intentionally tried to connect it to the other ones. That's why it was put all together in such a way. Okay, so probably Isaiah ben Amoz, who is the person who says is written this section, right, is not the author of all of these books, but is probably, at least there's some kernels in there that come from him, from a historical character, especially chapter 7 and 8. Very helpful to us that he probably had a big part in this. And the reason we think so, well, we're going to get to it. That's why this is important. Okay, so this is what's happened. Do you have any questions on politics, geography, canon, and structure of Isaiah?
Structure of Isaiah. I'm familiar with this Deutero-Isaiah and the latter part to Deutero and the third Isaiah, which is what'd you call it?
Yeah, Trito.
Trito. Okay. But the first part, I've always thought it was 1 through 39. I've never seen it 1 through 40. So you're saying it's
You're right. Sorry.
Okay.
Good job.
Just making sure.
Good job.
I was just checking because I thought, okay.
All fast. Yeah, because 37 through 39 is the story of Hezekiah. And so after that it ends. Yeah. So
Just you. I thought you knew something.
I do not know anything that you don't know.
You know a lot of stuff I don't know, brother.
All right. So 2 kings, Rezin, king of Aram, Syria, and Pekah, king of Israel. 2 different countries. Remember, they're split. So Israel and Judah are split. They had this big, after Solomon's son takes one group, and then Solomon's slave takes another group, and they have this separation of powers at that point. And obviously there was, civil war, no Abraham Lincoln to keep them all together. So they're split. It's a major problem, and is why most of the prophets are being written. Okay, they're being written because there's some sort of a problem between these 2 countries, or because one country is gone already, has been destroyed, and the other country is writing to its own people saying, you see what happened to them? It's because they weren't faithful. Wake up, right? Or be woke. We would say that. Sorry for my conservative friends, but that's all it means. Okay. All right. So now we're at we're at verse 2. Israel and Syria. I got to go back to my map because that's really important to the whole thing. Israel and Syria are afraid. Okay. Israel and Syria are afraid of Assyria. I know Syria and Assyria get annoying, right? Because they're like, this, why do they name them the same country? Sorry, this is life. Assyria is different than Syria. But Assyria is coming. These guys are afraid, so they make what's called Syrio-Ephraimite coalition. Okay, so Syria and Ephraim. Ephraim is the major tribe in the northern territory. So there are 12 tribes. here. So 2 of them are down here and 10 of them are up here. Ephraim is the main one. So it's called Syro-Ephraimite Coalition. That is, they agree to be pals. They make a, what's it called? Like one of those TV shows, you make an alliance. They made an alliance with each other. Okay. And they said, we're not going to hurt each other. We're going to team up, and we together are going to attack Judah. We'll take out Judah, and then we'll have enough power to withstand this annoying Assyria. Okay, so now Ahaz, the king of Israel, is scared. Of course he is. Because he wasn't that scared of Assyria, but he's super scared now of these two because they're coming in right now. You can imagine, king of Judah being attacked is worried. Verse 2, house of David was told, Aram has allied itself with Ephraim. So the hearts of Ahaz and his people were shaken as the trees of the forest are shaken by the wind. He's worried. You can imagine, since this is the Bible, God's going to do something about that because Ahaz is his guy, right? Here's Ahaz in Judah. And that's what it's always about. Judah, the people, the Jews, right? Judahite, the Jews. Those are his people. You know he's going to do something. It's the Bible. That's what it does. So God's got a plan. So what's God's plan? Then the Lord said to Isaiah, go out, you and your son Shear-Yashub, to meet Ahaz at the end of the aqueduct of the upper pool on the road to the washerman's field. Paraphrase, go meet Ahaz at this place that I tell you about. That's it. Say to him, be careful, keep calm, don't be afraid, do not lose heart because of those 2 smoldering stubs of firewood, because of the fierce anger of Rezin and Aram and son of Remaliah. Paraphrase, what, like keep calm and carry on, right? Like, don't worry about it. These 2 stupid stubs, they're not gonna be a problem. God's saying it's okay. Don't worry about these idiots. Okay, I got you. That's what's happening here. Aram, verse 5, Ephraim and Remaliah's son have plotted your ruin, saying, let us invade Judah, let us tear it apart and divide it among ourselves and make the son of Tabeel king over it. It's probably not Tabeel. It's probably the king of Tyre. It's a mess up in the phraseology. It's Tabul or something like that. Tabal, I think. But anyway, who cares? These 2 countries, Aram, that's Syria and Ephraim, that's Israel, have their plan, but God has this different one. So we're in verse 7 through 9. All right, now I'll let somebody else read because it's 3 whole verses. 7 through 9. Somebody wants this. I lost half of my people while I was doing all that stuff, huh?
No,
Wow.
we're here, dude.
Oh, I mean, I see only 16 people. We were up to like 20 or something like that. They're like, politics, get me out of here. Okay.
I will pay for your paraphrasing in the future, by the way. I need some more of that in my life.
All right, I'm here for you.
What was 7 through 9?
Yeah.
I'm intimidated by this. Okay. But this is what the sovereign Lord says. This invasion will never happen. It will never take place, for Syria is no stronger than its capital, Damascus, and Damascus is no stronger than its king, Rezin. As for Israel, within 65 years, it will be crushed and completely destroyed. Israel is no stronger than its capital, Samaria, and Samaria is no stronger than its king, Pekah, son of Remaliah. Unless your faith is firm, I cannot make you stand firm.
Ooh, okay. All right. So for Josh's sake, I have to paraphrase this again. Something like God is saying, like, please, like, really? Like, come on. King of Syria and Israel, it's only Rezin. It's only Pekah. Who cares? Like, these guys don't matter. Just Ahaz, listen. Just have faith. Just have faith in me. Be strong. You'll be okay. All right. 10 through 13. Somebody else got that? There's not a lot of new here, but keep going. Somebody read it for me.
Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, saying, ask a sign of the Lord your God. Let it be deep as Sheol or high as heaven. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, and I will not put the Lord to the test. Then Isaiah said, hear then, O house of David, is it too little for you to weary mortals, that you weary my God also?
Okay, so this is almost hilarious to me. So here he is, right? God speaking to Ahaz again through the prophet Isaiah, and Yahweh, the Lord, right? That's just Lord, all capital letters. It's just Yahweh. Anytime you see that, it's the name of the covenant God. He says to Ahaz, ask me for a sign. Like, I will give you a sign. Just ask me for a sign. And for some reason, Ahaz says, I will not put the Lord to the test. Like, I'm not going to do what you've asked me to do. Maybe he's following some old ancient theological tradition of not putting God to the test. Whatever the case is, God's the one who said to put him to the test. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it. So you can imagine God is not real happy. I told you what to do. You didn't do it. Like, so let me tell you something there, mister. Okay, this is him. Hear now, you house of David. Is it enough to try the patience of men? Do you try the patience of God too? How dare you? Okay, anyway. So now he's ticked off God, and now this sign that he wanted to give to him is going to have some extra power to it, and not in a positive way. So we finally reach verse 14. We've already read it like 3 times. Here it is. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. I told you to ask for a sign. You didn't ask for a sign. I'm going to give you a sign anyway. I told you, I'm giving you a sign. Here it is. The virgin will be with child and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. So the sign that Ahaz refuses to ask for, the sign that will prove that God is telling the truth, that you don't have to worry about these dumb snubbed out, pieces of firewood, these wrecks. The sign that confirms that Judah doesn't have to worry about nations trying to crush them is that a virgin will have a baby and they will call him Emmanuel. That's the plan. Okay, now we're going to get back to that because that's the key verse, but we still have to keep going. So let's follow this trajectory. Somebody want to read 15 and 16? Because the sign's not done. If you just read 14, you're not done. Somebody read 15 and 16.
I will.
Okay.
He will eat.
Right.
He will eat. Who wants it, Josh?
Debbie, you got this one. Josh, you can have the next one.
He will eat curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. But before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the 2 kings you dread will be laid waste.
All right. So, summary. I mean, you get the promise there. When the child is how old? Old enough to reject the wrong.
The wrong and choose the right.
Right. So, basically old enough to have wisdom between right and wrong. Right? I don't know how old that is.
8.
8? Okay. So before 8 years old. Okay. I don't know. I think my 3-year-olds knew. I mean, Davin gave me the finger when he was 2.5. So he knew.
Love you, Davin.
He did not. He hasn't, at least to my face, he hasn't done it yet. But he's done it under the table, I'm sure, many times. All right. Okay. So before this happens, whatever it is, maybe toddler, maybe 8 years old, before he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the 2 kings that you dread will be destroyed, will be laid waste. So this sounds like a great sign, doesn't it? Like, whatever this sign is, it's happening, like, it's coming, right? Really, within the next few years. Anyway. So, but there's more, because remember, Ahaz didn't trust God. He didn't ask for the sign. So now the sign is going to have a little bit of a repercussion, a little bit of a hit on it, unfortunately. So that's verse 17. So who's got 17? I was 17.
Got it.
All right, Sam.
The Lord will bring the king of Assyria upon you and your people and your father's house, days that have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah.
Okay, so what happens in history is Isaiah, instead of trusting in God, which is the call of the prophet, trust in God. Don't trust in horses. Don't trust in chariots. Okay, don't think ahead. What Judah, the king of Judah, wants to do, Ahaz, is he wants to call Assyria for help. So I can see him, it's a touch phone, and he's picking it up and he's calling Assyria for help. But Assyria is part of the problem. What he should have done is severed all ties from them and all of these countries, and just trusted in God. If he trusts in the covenant God, then God will come and he'll destroy them and them, and everything will be great, except for he didn't trust in God, so he is still going to destroy them. No worries, but Assyria is coming. So it might be a little longer, because at least these guys are out. Don't worry, they're not going to get you. They can't hurt you, but you're going to get hurt from the original problem. Okay, so they'll come in. Oh, sorry, verse 18. In that day, the Lord will whistle for flies from the distant streams of Egypt and for bees from the land of Assyria. What in the world are flies and bees doing in this story? Any thoughts? Anybody with a great study Bible tells them what flies and bees are?
Eyes destroy flesh and honey promotes it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Or a metaphor for Egyptian troops.
Yep. Yeah. Most scholars say this is Egyptian troops. The flies and the bees, which would come out when the Nile floods, when there's a problem, they're going to come. So Egypt is coming. Remember, Egypt is down here. This is the Red Sea. And, the Nile River is going to flow up into, you've seen that map before, even though I drew it terribly there. So they're coming. They're all going to come, and they are settling in the steep ravines. This is 19, in the crevices and the rocks and on the thorn bushes and all the water holes. Like, these guys are coming now. Okay. And in that day, now the metaphor changes from bees and flies to a razor in verse 20. In that day, the Lord will use a razor. What is that? Well, it's kind of defined right there in the story. A razor hired from beyond the river, the king of Assyria, to shave your head and the hair of your legs and take off your beards also. So if you know anything about ancient Near East, this is like the most humiliating thing that can happen. Okay, so basically someone's going to come, and this is what happened when they conquer other lands. They will shave their beards, shave half of their beards, do anything to humiliate them. And so I think what your version might say, in order to keep it tame, shaving from head to toe, right? Basically shaves them completely. Really, when they talk about shaving their legs, it's not legs. Okay, so it's a euphemism because they can't say what it really is there, because this is polite talk or something like that. But for everything you can see and those places you cannot see. Okay, it's the most humiliating thing that can happen to a man, to a soldier. Okay, to have all of this shaved, and this is what Assyria is doing. Basically, you're going to get your butt kicked. All right, this is what's happening. They're coming in after you. In that day, a man will keep alive. No, somebody else. 21 through 25. Sorry. Give me that whole section there. There's no hard words in that one.
Verse 25?
21 through 25.
Yeah. On that day, one will keep alive a young cow and 2 sheep, and will eat curds because of the abundance of milk that they gave. For everyone left in the land shall eat curds and honey. On that day, every place where there used to be 1,000 vines worth 1,000 shekels of silver will become briars and thorns. With bow and arrows, one will go there, for all the land will be briars and thorns. And as for the hills that used to be hoed with a hoe, you will not go there for fear of briars and thorns, but they will become a place where cattle are let loose and where sheep tread.
Okay, so a lot of briars and thorns going on here. So the opposite of a well-tended garden of Eden, right? A mess of a wilderness area. And remember, Israel, Judah is Eden. This one, it's the temple. It's the place where God dwells. But now it's becoming not Eden. So they're no longer my people. This is going to be a disaster. They're destroying you. They're completely messing you up. Everything that was cultivatable is now gone. All right. Now, You'd think we'd stop because the chapter's over, but you can't. You got to go just a little further. Okay, all the way through chapter 8, but we're not going to read every bit of it. So, and in order to expedite things so nobody gets stuck on verse 1, I'm going for it because verse 1 is a killer. The Lord said to me, take a large scroll and write on it with an ordinary pen, Maher-shalal-hash-baz. And I will call in Uriah the priest and Zechariah son of Jeberechiah as a reliable witness for me. Okay, so that he's writing the words Maher-shalal-hash-baz on a pen, with a pen, quill, whatever it is that they're using at this particular time, on a large scroll. They're writing this thing. The priest is coming in. Zechariah, the son of Jeberechiah, is coming in. They're witnesses. They're going to see whatever this says here, which is something like hasten the booty, bring the spoils. Maher-shalal-hash-baz means that, like, bring us the stuff, right? Okay. And then I went to the prophetess. This is really important. If you stopped in chapter 7 with the Isaiah 7:14 prophecy, okay, you don't get into chapter 8, and nobody gets into chapter 8. We go from 7 to chapter 9, because 9 says, wonderful counselor, almighty God. Actually, it's wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, right? So we know it's about Jesus because chapter 7 is about Jesus, and chapter 9 is about Jesus. It's all about Jesus, but chapter 8 is in the middle. So, and it has this whole political thing. So the Lord said to me, take this large scroll, do all this stuff. Then I went, verse 3. I went to the prophetess. Who's the prophetess? Isaiah is the prophet. Who's the prophetess?
His wife.
His wife. Okay, maybe a second wife, maybe a third wife, but it's his wife, his lady, somehow. And she conceived and gave birth to a son. And the Lord said to me, name him Maher-shalal-hash-baz. Before the boy knows how to say my father, my mother, in other words, mama, papa, before he can say that, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. The wealth, this and this, Assyria is going to take out before they're old enough to say mama or papa. Does this sound familiar? Like anything from chapter 7 that we just read? Before the child's old enough to know right from wrong, the king of Assyria is going to come in and destroy all the people. This is the same story, right? It's telling you the same thing, and it just told you who the child is that will come in the sign. Like, it's right there. It's in chapter 8. The sign is clear. So, Maher-shalal-hash-baz, by the way, don't name your kid that. First of all, it's too long. He's going to get teased a lot. Also, it doesn't mean great. I mean, you know. So, Maher-shalal-hash-baz is the child of promise, not Jesus. Maher-shalal-hash-baz. And I think you can see this in the context if you're looking at this in verse 4. Before he can say mama or papa, before he knows the difference between right or wrong, all this is going to take place. Now, what you're thinking is, now hold on just a second. Okay, I need to get rid of this disaster of a map. You're going to have to draw it again later. What I assume you're thinking is something like, well, it can't be Maher-shalal-hash-baz because the text says a virgin will conceive, and chapter 8 is clearly about a story where the prophet goes in. Oh, sorry, Josh, you slacker. He's leaving. It's clearly about going into his wife. Like, it tells it right there. So this is obviously not about a virgin. I mean, it's obviously not about Jesus. Sorry. It's obviously not about Maher-shalal-hash-baz. Stay on task. Okay? But here's the problem. Even if you just pick up you've got a study Bible in your hand, okay, that has little commentary notes at the bottom, I'm pretty sure every one that I've looked at explains this problem to you, for you. Okay, this word in Hebrew is Alma. Okay, and it means, it means virgin or maiden.
Young woman of marriageable age.
Or young woman. Good job. Now, a young woman of marriageable age is almost always a virgin in their world. So the words could be more or less the same, but there is a Hebrew word for virgin that's not Alma. And he didn't use that here. And then he tells you the story in context about going into the young woman, the prophetess, the young maiden, and she conceived.
What's that other word?
I knew I shouldn't have said that out loud because then I'd have to actually be able to show what it was. I can't remember it. Sorry. I can only remember the ones that I'm working with, not the ones I'm not working with.
Betula?
What is it?
Is it Betula?
Betula?
Yeah. I don't know. That's what AI says.
There's things right in the way.
No.
Tala.
It's okay.
I'm going to assume AI is right, and he's got it. I just can't. But he says it's Betula. So the great thing is all of us have all this information at our fingertips, and you still come and listen to me. You could probably just write, "Is this Jesus?" and it would tell you all this stuff. So,
Yeah.
all right. So Betula. Okay. So, let's see. Got distracted. See where I'm at. Okay, so all I was going to say with this is this word Alma is going to show up throughout Scripture in other passages where it has nothing to do with being a virgin, just has to do with being a young woman. So you can find it in Genesis, you can find it in Proverbs as just a maiden, and it's obvious that she has a husband, right, or she's about to have a husband. So it's pretty normal. So as a preacher, I get left with a choice now. Okay, I can either do the statistics thing that I started off with. I can do the apologetics thing. I can give you goosebumps about how all of the prophecies point straight to Jesus, or I can show you what's actually happening in the text, and the goosebumps are not quite as easy to come by. But I think, first of all, that it's honest, and I think all truth is God's truth, and He's not worried about truth. We don't have to fix the Bible or fix history for Him. He knows what He's doing, right? Honesty is always the best way that we should try and figure these things out, even if we can't make it work in our theology. Sometimes I've got to admit, I don't know what to do with this. Okay, this one, I feel like there's something happening here that's really kind of cool, and actually might be even more robustly awesome if you follow this story and you go to all the other prophecies and you move them forward in the same way. So as we look at this, I want you to think like, so all of you at this point have either Androids or iPhones. I'm guessing. I don't know if there's any other options, to be honest with you. You've got something like that. And you've arrived, right? This is like the pinnacle of creation. We all carry everything that we need. Like we have a telephone, but we have everything else at our fingertips anyway. I can find out Betula in 5 seconds, right? And I couldn't even remember it even after I saw it. So now, if you're trying to explain to Alexander Graham Bell, right? I think he's the inventor of that. If you're trying to explain to him how this works, and you talked about, I don't even know how this works, so making this up as I go. If you talked about like satellites and cables across oceans and, I don't know, giant computers in a room with, like Joshua, you guys remember War Games? Giant computers like that. Somebody remembers War Games? Thanks, man. All right, somebody remembers. Whatever. If you try to explain that to Alexander Graham Bell, he's not going to have a clue what you're talking about. So if you're trying to define him what's going on, you're going to have to use language that he would understand, right? Something, some kind of, you can't talk about YouTube and you can't talk about TikTok. You'd have to talk about wires and switchboards and hand cranks and I don't know what else they used and telephone back. Basically, you have to speak in a language that he would understand. No matter how brilliant he is, there's no way he's going to understand this language. Jesus' story is connected to the Isaiah story. There is a connection here in similar ways to this phone thing. Israel's story starts it, Jesus' story comes along so utterly unexpected, right? Just like this blows their mind. They have no idea how to work with this. It's actually, I would say Israel not only didn't expect it, could not imagine this kind of a concept in their mind. And they can't explain how this works. So what they're doing is they're forced, because for them, in my theology and the way I think, they watched Jesus die on a cross and get up. And they walked around with them. And there are stories about that. And they are so persuaded that's true that it must be part of the story of God. And so they're going back into God's story, the Hebrew Bible, and they're looking for things that may have said something that will help them grasp the story. So they're not looking at prophecies, but they're looking at stories that they can reimagine. You've heard this language from me a lot, right? Or renegotiate. They can look at it differently. So the story of Jesus can't be perfectly explained by all the stuff that was happening. He's this huge surprise, and they had to read their Old Testament in a whole new way. So this is really important. The Old Testament is not the final word for Christians. I feel like that's probably not all that profound for Christians, right? It's not the final word. Neither is the New Testament, by the way. Jesus is the final word for Christians. Okay, now, even that, we've got to define what that exactly means. But the Old Testament had to be used by later authors to show what was obviously the climax of everything. They see Jesus as the climax of the covenant, so they go back to the Old Testament and they bring it in. So here's Matthew. Okay, we're not going to argue about who Matthew is. Probably not Matthew the disciple. Doesn't matter to me whether you think he is or not. Don't care. Sometime, some author named something is writing this book, which we call Matthew. All right. And he's writing this, and he's overwhelmed by this man, Jesus. He's come to believe that he's the true Messiah in a way that blew his mind, because he never would have expected this in his reading of the Old Testament. And now he wants to find a way to explain how Jesus fits into this story. So Matthew starts his book. This is chapter 1, verses 22 and 23. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. Fulfillment language, prophecy language. Fulfilling the prophet. Oh, okay. Well, there we go. I put my V hand, did this, and it turned on. Okay. So the virgin, this is what the Lord said through the prophet. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. So according to Matthew, the birth of Jesus to a virgin is predicted by the prophet Isaiah about 700 years earlier. Matthew is saying this is some sort of fulfillment of a prophecy. Okay, now, don't jump too quickly into this picture of prophecy as prognostication, as prediction. This is not Nostradamus predicting the day of Kennedy's death. Okay, that's not what's happening here. That's not the way prophecy works at any time. Okay, prophecy in their mind is a specific genre, and you don't just fulfill prophecy, you fulfill law, you fulfill wisdom books, you fulfill all kinds of things. Okay, prophecy is one genre, which is a way of speaking truth into the lives of the kings or the people, taking God's word to them, carrying forth his word. That's what prophecy is. Okay, carrying forth. So this is not about a prediction. Isaiah is not a prediction 700 years earlier about Jesus. Isaiah isn't predicting Jesus's birth. He's talking about something that would take place in just a few months, several months, maybe a year or two. Because just think about it. Just think about it logically. What kind of a sign is it if I'm super worried about two people coming over to beat me up, Pekah and Rezin? They're coming to my house, and I pray to God, and he says, I'm going to give you a sign. In 700 years, you're going to be fine. I'm going to beat those two people up beforehand. Like, wait, before, like, I don't, like, they're going to come over tomorrow. If you give me a sign 700 years, I'll be dead. Like, that's not helpful to me. The sign wouldn't make sense. The sign has to come soon. So for Isaiah is not thinking about something future. He's talking about his life right then. He's talking about going into the prophet. He's telling you his story. Again, this is why Isaiah ben Amoz, chapter 7 and 8, are really connected to him. He's giving you his story about his child, and how his child is the sign that all this is going to happen, that she's going to conceive. Now, you can say, I don't think it's a very good sign. Like, I mean, you got a baby. But remember, this is after the fact. He's writing this story after and saying, this is the sign, this is how it all worked. So every interpreter of this time is being creative with the text. That's what they're called to do. It's probably what interpreters today are supposed to do. So Matthew has this plan. He's writing this text for a specific reason. Good, I got 15 minutes. He wants Jesus to be seen in a certain way. He wants him to be seen as a new Torah giver. Jesus is the new Torah giver. He wants Jesus to be seen as a new Moses. He wants Jesus to be seen like, this is why he calls him, Matthew will say, like a son called out of Egypt, right? That's the language of Israel being called out of Egypt. Like, they're quoting that. So, of course, for Matthew, he has to tell a story about Jesus coming out of Egypt. So he has to tell a story about Jesus going into Egypt. He has to be called out of Egypt because he wants you to see Jesus as a new Israel. Everywhere that you see, in fact, that word Emmanuel, right? That is the name Israel. That's Israel's name. It's the people who God is with. God is with us. It's supposed to be like blessing. It's a good word, Emmanuel. You know, Jesus is never called Emmanuel, right? There's nowhere in the Bible he's called Emmanuel. Like, you'd think if this is a prophecy, they would call his name Emmanuel, but no, what do? They call his name Jesus, right? That's what they call him, not Emmanuel. But he is the symbol of all goodness come on Israel. He is Israel again. He is God with us, right? And that Israel is supposed to be God with us. Israel is supposed to be in the midst of all the other nations, is supposed to be a priest to all the other nations. Within Israel, the temple is supposed to be God with us for all of Israel. Within the temple, the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to be God with us for all the rest of the temple. Okay, so there's these holy, holier, holy, holiest, right? It keeps getting holier and holier as it goes in further and further. So that's what's happening with all of this. He's supposed to be telling the story about Jesus being a new Moses, to being a new Noah, about being a new, right? And Moses is this too. Moses is a new Noah and a new Sargon. As you tell the story, the Sargon myth and the Noah myth. And I don't mean necessarily that they're fictional. I just mean those stories that are meant to give you something more. Sargon and Noah are both in the story of Moses, as in the basket, he's in an ark in the same way, he's in the water, the same things that happened to Sargon. Okay, we'll do that some other day. But Moses has a special origin story. Like Noah has like all these people have these special things. And Jesus has a special origin story. Okay, and this is the one. So Matthew's not trying to stick with the original meaning. That's not his goal. His goal is to talk about Jesus, and Jesus is the climax of the Israel story. You're doing some sophisticated hermeneutics, by the way, right now. Okay, that's what's happening. So Matthew wants to see Jesus the way that he sees them. So he takes Israel's story, which he and everyone else knows really well, because that's the world they live in. They know Hebrew Bible. And he tells Jesus' story using the same structure and the same words. Okay, he's trying to give you that story so you can make the connection in the same way. So here's the situation in Israel. Israel's in trouble. The book of Isaiah is written to explain how they got into exile, how this is all messed up, right? It's supposed to be after the fact, how they got into exile. They're being threatened by all the nations around them. Who should they have trusted? For crying out loud, Judah, you should have trusted God. That's the point of the story. Just trust God. Don't trust chariots. Don't trust soldiers. Don't trust in Egypt. Don't trust in Assyria. Don't trust in anything but God. And if they have done that, he would have rescued them. At least that's the way the story would go, with crushing defeat on their enemies. That's Israel's story. Now, here's the new Israel story in Jesus. Along comes Israel's in trouble. For centuries, they've been living in exile, right? Owned by other countries. Constant threat of extinction. Who do they trust? Well, they should trust God. What does that mean for them? It meant wait for God to send the one that the prophecies are talking about, kind of. The one who's going to be born in Bethlehem, right? Wait for the one from the line of Judah who's coming. Wait for the scepter to come, whatever that is. And of course, they don't know what that is, but they're looking for something in some sense, something that goes further than the immediate understanding that they had. They're waiting for the son of David. Everybody's been waiting for a son of David since the son of David, right? Since Solomon, and when it didn't work. So wait for the one who's going to come in and destroy Assyria and Syria and Ephraim and Egypt and even Rome. That's the world that they're living in. Just like God would have destroyed their enemies, now we're waiting for the new king to come in and destroy our new enemies. But surprise, right? That's why it's such a mess. Surprise, Jewish people, Hebrew people. Here's Jesus. He's not going to do any of those things. Everything you thought about him, like he's not going to start a war. He doesn't end in exile. He doesn't even allow for any kind of violence at all, completely humbling himself, contrary to all the Israelite domination theology that I've been reading about all along. He's not going to take Israel back to its glory, right? He's not going to make Israel great again. None of that's going to happen. Okay, that's not his plan. He has a completely different way of being king. This actually should apply in great ways right now. A totally different way of being king. Israel, you've ceased to be significant. Okay, this isn't anti-Semitism here. It's talking, these people aren't, now there is an Israel of one. The people, the land, they don't matter in the theology of the thing anymore. Because Jesus has an all different plan. He's not planning on putting them up on some sort of pedestal and destroying all the enemies around them. So why don't the Hebrew people, why don't the Jewish people see this? Why don't they get this, that the text is obviously about Jesus? Because it's not obviously about Jesus. It's only about Jesus because what Matthew is doing is he is grabbing hold of this text and he's saying, let me tell you a story about Israel and a phenomenal birth that changes everything. Now we have a new story about Israel. Let me tell you about somebody who came and changed everything, and let me tell you about a phenomenal birth. Now, granted, you're still going to have to work with Matthew chapter 1, right? All I'm saying is Isaiah 7 is not meant to give you that prophecy move that you're looking for. It's really about starting in Matthew, going back, mining the Old Testament, and finding a verse that you can use to make your point here later on. Now, Matthew's point is theological. He's going to go further than Isaiah is. He's not going to talk about a virgin as a young maiden. He's going to call this virgin a Parthenos.
Parthenos.
Thanks, David.
Parthenos.
Yeah, he's the Greek man. Okay, a Parthenos, which means virgin, right? Like, not just young maiden, it means virgin. And in case you didn't understand it in the Greek, he's going to continue with another clause on there that'll say very specifically, she did not lay with a man. In case you didn't understand what the Greek word meant, like doubling it, saying she did not. Like, so he's saying, you thought a virgin birth in Isaiah 7 was awesome? Oh, let me tell you about this one. This one is a virgin birth like you can't even imagine. Like, literally, she's like, there was no Isaiah to come in. There's nobody. This is a Holy Spirit baby. Okay, so he is definitely trying, I think, to get you to see something miraculous here. If we were to start talking about Matthew, we've got some other work to do. Okay, you'd have to figure out, okay, is it really a virgin birth? I mean, this is literature, right? So we don't know why it wasn't there. That's a faith issue, right? And we don't take it there. Does it have to be a virgin birth? it's a great conversation here for the future, probably. But Matthew's point is absolutely it is. Right? This is somebody who's born of God. This is God's own son. This is incarnate God, in a sense. Yes, what does the Bible say about the virgin birth? That's kind of what we're trying to do here. Thanks, Travis. So Isaiah 7 is not predictive prophecy. And I know this doesn't give you goosebumps or anything like that, but it's honest. It's a redemptive movement through Scripture and how it's working there. It's Christotelic, which is an important word to learn in hermeneutics, right? That Christ is the goal of the story, but is not the center of the story. Like Jesus was not on Isaiah's mind, or whoever wrote the book of Isaiah. He's the goal of it because all of the story is heading in towards this thing. How do we determine that? Well, like we set a canon. We said, here's the 66 books, and they're all revolving around Jesus. So in some sense, we set that, but we say God has somehow through history preordained us to have set those books that will all point us in that direction. And so now we're watching that story come together. So we lose the power of all those statistics. We lose the ability to insist that our reading is the only possible reading. We lose the ability to laugh at other people's stupidity because they possibly can't get it. And we lose, I think, the power of a constitutional authority, right? Like the Bible is our constitution. Like it's just, and hopefully this is what I've been doing for 4 years, showing you that's not what the Bible's meant to be. We gain a very cool story in a new way, a story that's not over yet. Think a story that's still continuing, a story that begins with Israel, reaches its climax in an Israel of one, and then honestly spreads out to the church and you, like you're part of this story. And I think that's, I think it actually moves the story forward in ways that make my heart leap in different ways. Because if I show this as a prophecy, I've got 60 more that don't quite work the way we want them to. But they do if they're stories that people are grabbing hold of and using to reimagine how everything ends. All right, so I think I'm done. I know I didn't give you hardly any time to talk about anything, but hopefully you'll go home and talk about it. But you can talk for a few minutes if you want. Anything anybody want to say? This shouldn't take anything away from you, except for certainty and constitutional authority. But the story's still there. The Jesus is still there. The Savior is still there. Matthew's actually saying, yeah, this is awesome. Look what we got. So, assuming that you think Matthew is authoritative in some way, it's still super powerful. Tell me your concerns if you've got them, or tell me your. Go ahead, Sam.
If Matthew is writing to a Jewish audience,
yeah,
who, like, I'm just gonna go out there and make a wild guess that most Jews, like, I know Jews were very schooled on the first 4 books, right? At the
Yes.
time.
Yep.
But like were the prophets read and studied in the same diligent way? Like were they being read in the temple? Was that part of like the reading? Was that?
Yes.
Okay.
Not in the synagogues, yes.
Okay, so does that mean like the average Jew that Matthew would supposedly be writing to would have a knowledge of this text in Isaiah and what is being discussed?
Yeah. Yeah. They would. Yes.
How is Matthew not just being deceptive then? If this clearly isn't about Jesus, especially if, and this is a big kicker for me. This really gave me a hard time for a long time, but just the fact that Mark whoever is writing Mark and Paul as well never mention a virgin birth.
Yep.
How is Matthew not then being deceptive in some way? And then why should we take his word on Jesus seriously in any sense, besides it just being an influential historical document that people have lived off of for thousands of years?
Yeah. So I don't think it's deceptive because I think this is the way people did theology. So this is how hermeneutics works. If you look into the hermeneutics of the Second Temple period, their creativity, their midrashic explanations were just commonplace. This is how you explain certain things. So you're updating this for a new time. So they're grabbing hold of the story. Instead of saying Isaiah 7 is this, they're saying, do you see how this story comes together? I'm telling a story very much like that one in a new way. I'm not saying this was that specifically, but I'm saying this led to a sign that came right afterwards of something that's really incredible. And we also have something very much like that, only it's even more powerful. So I don't think he's explaining Isaiah 7:14 as much as he is saying Jesus is fulfilling that. In the same way, Jesus fulfills the law, but it's not a predictive aspect. He's just the fulfillment of the law. He's the fulfillment of Proverbs, of the Proverbs son, of wisdom, right? But in a different way, a typological way, not a predictive way. I don't know if that.
I mean, it seems like, to put it in modern terms, that would make it more like a fan fiction than a historical treatise. Because, like, if I were to quote something like that in a history paper in that way, I would get points taken off. Like it's.
Yeah, so I think
that's just me realizing what.
Sure.
What the purpose of this text.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't mind the word fan fiction. I'd be careful with using that in evangelical circles, but because I don't think it's created out of whole cloth. I do think there are midrashic or fictional aspects drawn into the story, and the job of a good hermeneut is to try to determine how much of this. So you've got people like the historical Jesus seminar people trying to figure out how much of the story is actual history, like it really happened just like this, and how much is what we call historiography, just history writing, or mythography, like we're putting these stories on it. And I think for sure the New Testament, the Gospels are throwing out some fiction in order to tell their stories. And determining how much of it is just like, I don't want to just say made up versus how much of it is, things to make the story. Go ahead, Travis, sorry.
I think it's how much of it is for a deeper meaning and purpose as opposed to history. Because, I think like most of the Bible is not for history. I'll just say it. I don't think that the vast majority of the Bible is for historical, literal purposes. Literal in the sense of historical. But that doesn't mean it's not some beautiful thing. That doesn't mean that it's weird. Like the American dream is not a historical story, but it's based on history. That like pioneers came, settlers came and did things. It's not nearly as pretty as the American dream story that we sell people, and we don't have white picket fences anymore. But that's the story. That's the myth. That's and there's some truth behind it, and it can kind of work out for some people, and it's a lot harder for others. But yeah, I mean, like we do the same thing still today, in different ways. So
yeah, and I don't want to pretend there's no history.
Yeah,
I just this is not.
I don't mean that either.
Yeah, I know, right? I know you weren't. I was just trying to explain. I want to make sure people aren't hearing me say this is just a made up book. We don't need to care about it at all. There's history. There's a whole storyline that's moving, but it's mixed, right? You're grabbing hold of things like a flood narrative. Was there a flood? Probably. Was there a worldwide flood? Yeah. But everybody has some kind of story of a flood, so maybe something happened, and now they're giving it theological power, and they're adding all kinds of extra things to it to help with the theology. It's like the Titanic, right? It's a great movie, isn't it? Fantastic movie. I mean, the only thing true in it is the ship went down, I think. But like that, I don't know if Jack and Rose are real people, like any of that stuff. So it's based on a true story. Probably, I think the Bible's more than that. So you've got to figure out, depending on the genre and what's going on. And the gospel stories is a particular genre, right? It's told with this storytelling, this midrashic way. So like Robert Gundry will say that the story of the three wise men is just the story of the angels told from a different way of thinking about it, about some light giving them the answer to Jesus, right? Like there are no three wise men. There is no star. It's an allegory, something else. This is a good Christian man. But that doesn't mean the story's not true, but it's not historically precise and maybe not historical at all. So gotta do stuff with that. But those are all things you have to work on one by one with these stories. Some of them might be 100% precise the way they're being told. They're at least intended to be exactly the way they are. And others might add in just a few details. Mark will say it's the green grass. Matthew will say it's not green grass. Like, why are they giving those little details? And then someone else might give you whole other things. And yes, which I'm sure Sam will go there. Well, what about the crucifixion? Like, what about the resurrection? These can also be those kinds of stories. And you have to deal with those. We can't just say, well, those are the true ones. That's just dogma. Right? They're all true. The question is, how historical is everything? And I have certain faith presuppositions that I think you guys know that I don't need to go back and explain every single time on here about those things, but they do involve some history. Yeah, quite a lot of history. Sorry, David, I kept talking.
No, you're cool. I mean, to Sam's point, whoever we attribute Matthew to, this is not his only gig in the Old Testament. I mean, he's looking for the Old Testament under every rock. Oh, he got called out of Egypt, and over and over again, Matthew is of the four Gospels the one that seems to take us to the Old Testament the most.
Yep.
Trying to verify the story of Jesus, or at least add evidence to it, whatever.
He's making a legal argument to the Jewish people for why Jesus is the Messiah, is what he's doing.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's, I mean, that's my 2 cents. I think I might have said that in a sermon recently. Like it's so.
Yeah.
Matthew, if you look at it like a lawyer, he's making an argument for why Jesus is the Messiah, and he's citing the things that would be most persuasive to make that argument to the jury of his peers.
Mm-hmm.
Even
In
the
his way
genealogy.
of arguing. Yeah, and a genealogy. So it's his way of arguing. It's the way that they argued. Look, you just even Google this, like, the different ways that you can do arguments during that time for like Sod or Res or Midrash, like Darash, all these different ways that you would do it. And read some of Jesus's arguments against the lawyers sometimes, right? When he's making an argument and then everyone was like, and it shut their mouths and they were amazed. And I always think, really? Jesus, that's a pretty easy one for me to beat, to be honest, right? Because I don't think the way they thought. They had a different way of arguing than we do that sounded persuasive to them. So I like that a legal argument that he's trying to make that would be persuasive to them at that time. And Paul is not. He doesn't care about that. Like you said, John doesn't care about that. Mark doesn't care about that. Only Luke and Matthew find it relevant and tell that story. So,
and Luke, I've always thought, had more of a Gentile audience, and so he has to approach it from a whole different perspective.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, they're both a birth narrative, but they're very different birth narratives.
Totally different.
Yes.
Yep.
Compare the genealogy if you want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yep. And the good evangelical answer is one's Mary and one's Joseph.
One's Joseph.
But
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But read them. They're not. They're both Joseph. And they're both different. So yeah, but this is how telescoping works. This is how you create stories in order to persuade people of things.
They're neither historical, but they're somewhat historical.
Yeah, they're semi-historical. That's right.
Okay.
I mean, look at Genesis chapter 5 and Genesis chapter 10. How old everybody's at, thousands of years and all that
Oh
stuff.
gosh, yeah.
It's the way you told stories. Anyway, oh my gosh, it's 9:22.
Yep.
Whoo-wee. All right, let's shut this down, Travis. Cut us out, then people can